Am I an expert? No, and that's why I invest in people who are. Know what you do well, know what you don't do well, buy your time back. It's far better to spend $1 on your time.
This week, we're joined by Luke Scott, owner of Revolution Personal Training in South Melbourne in Australia.
I think it's really easy to get sucked into thinking you do the best job and you're the best trainer or the best coach. As a business owner, we're most valuable when we can work in our leadership capacity. When I took time to get away from the day-to-day, we really shot ahead.
We dive into exactly how Luke has built a successful personal training gym while also building a lifestyle, which means he is not operational in the business.
I had probably lost a little bit of the fire in my belly, lost my confidence, my ability to be a little bit fearless in business. I started blaming the economy. Interest rates were really high. Cost of living was high. Definitely the story I was telling myself. Pushing things again, driving again. I think when you're running a business, you can build it the way you want it to be. The ultimate test of challenging yourself.
So if you want to find out how you can grow your business while you have more freedom, this is the episode for you. We hope you enjoy. Thank you for coming all the way down. You have definitely smashed the record for the guest to travel the furthest to be in the podcast studio today. So massive thank you for being here. So let's just dive in. Can you kind of run through the name of the business, the model, and we'll start from there.
Not a problem. So firstly, thank you for having me. And the name of the business, Revolution Personal Training. We're in South Melbourne, and Charlie visited us last Thursday, which was great. We run a personal training, semi-private training and small group training gym in South Melbourne, and we've been around for 21 years this year. So it's been a long journey, and I've worked in various different capacities within the business, and I think we're in a really good place with FMA's help, and really looking forward to the 12 months ahead.
And how many clients are you currently serving at the moment?
Yep. So across all of those different service categories that we run, there's about 205 members across the board.
And what's the annual revenue of the business?
Yep. So we'd be pushing around about the 750 to 800,000 Australian dollars a year.
Nice, amazing. And for anyone wondering, if you are thinking what's that in pounds, just put it in half, basically. And you'll
be nice if we were £1 million business, but we're a little bit away from it.
And you'll pretty much be there. Yep. But still, you have built a significant business and really a great lifestyle business as well, while also having the commercial success at the same time. So I think this episode is going to be really, really valuable for so many people that in particular are parents as well, because when I came to visit your gym, you drove, I think it was an hour and a half to come and be in the gym. And that's because you're not in the gym on a regular basis at all, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so you're not operational in the business, not on the gym floor, clients are being served. How long have you not been operational in the business for?
Yeah, so there's about 4 sessions a week I run, and they're for people that I've dealt with for one of them around 20 years, this customer of ours. So I look after her, and the other customers are people that I have a really good relationship with. And I do that because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. So I made a really conscious decision about 10 years ago when my son was born to step away from being hands-on on the tools, so to speak, in the industry, to move more into working behind the scenes. So running the sales, running the marketing, running the advertising, doing the management, all of those things that need to happen outside of working on the gym floor. And there's been significant times throughout running our business that I've really seen the business push ahead. So one of them's been over the last 12 months with working with FMA, but definitely when I took time to get away from the day-to-day service provision within the business and work on the behind-the-scenes things a lot more, we really shot ahead. I think it's really easy to get sucked into delivering the service and thinking you do the best job and you're the best trainer or the best coach. But really, as a business owner, we're most valuable when we can work in our leadership capacity. So when I've been able to separate myself from the day-to-day running of the business, we've been able to grow and push forward for sure.
So by actually stepping out of the business, you were able to grow it further?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And the reason I said this is going to be so valuable for so many people is that many gym owners listening to this right now will be parents and will not have the lifestyle that maybe you currently have, but desire to spend more time with their kids while also being in the position where the business still grows. And what sometimes happens is the business owner takes time out of the business to focus more on family, and then the business might slip. But you've built the business in a position where it's actually been able to grow, and you've been able to spend that quality time with family and kids as well, which I think is incredible. So I'd love you to run me through the process. Actually, how many team members do you have, by the way?
So we've got 12 team members in various roles.
And 10 years ago, how many team members did you have?
Probably six to eight. So things have definitely grown. I do try and keep our team smaller and have them doing more as opposed to having a really expansive team doing bits and pieces. So it's a conscious decision to try and keep our team smaller. And finding the right people is really a key there, that's for sure.
And let's dive into all of that, from finding the right people to actually the process of being able to step out. So it's 10, we're going to go back quite a while, but 10 years ago, you've made that decision to step away from the business. What's the first thing that you start to delegate? And are you kind of on the floor full time at this point, or quite high, like blocking the whole week?
It would have been probably, say, 25% split between working behind the scenes and doing the sales and doing the leadership and doing the management stuff that needs to be done in running any business. Gradually moving away. It was never done all in one hit, but it was done through making sure hiring right people is the key thing. Making sure you've got good people, and then stepping out of their way, I think, is one thing that I do well. Is I certainly wouldn't consider myself a micromanager. So making sure that I give people the responsibility, the tasks and the tools to get their job done, and then trying to get out of their way. Still being there to support and guide and nurture when it needs to be done and lead, but making sure that those, if you're hiring the right people, putting them in the right seat and making sure you give them that autonomy to do their job is crucial.
And so those 6 people initially were in a position where they were functioning within the business to a level that gave you confidence to be able to step away?
Absolutely. So it can't just be a hire and, here's your uniform, here's your keys, away you go. You've definitely got to nurture those people into those positions, and it takes time.
Which is something I've actually seen in the past, where someone hires someone and maybe they're a month fresh. And it could be for coaching, but it also could be, someone gets a salesperson, they do it for a month and then they just step away completely, and they're kind of hoping and wishing that they perform well. So is there more of a nurture process for you before you could fully step away?
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely think, don't get me wrong, we can still do this better. Absolutely, we still can do this better. And I think that's business, constantly evolving and getting better and providing more support and more guidance. But making sure that you've got the right people, you've hired well, you've spent the time, you've trained them up, and then giving them that confidence, and then letting them do what they do best, And a lot of the time as coaches, we think we're the best coach in the gym. We think we've got the most talent, we've got the best rapport building ability, but identify what your team has as strengths. Yes, they're going to have some weaknesses as well, but really just try and amplify those strengths that they have.
And in terms of the hiring process, what does your hiring process look like? How do you find, first of all, potentially the right people to come and interview?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how things are done here in the UK. So we have, generally it's an online advertising campaign that we'll do for staff members. If we have people who are referred to us, great as well. But generally it'll be an online ad for a new staff member. We do then a 3-phase interview. First one is just a phone call. And I'm not sure if this can be beeped out, but I call it my "Are you a dickhead" interview. Basically, just figuring out if someone would be a good cultural fit. Having a really casual chat with them, making sure that they're the sort of person that I'd like to work with. Basically, building that rapport, seeing if they're a people person, all those sort of soft skills that you can't really teach. And that's a very easy one to get out of the way. If we've got 70 applicants for a position, it's an easy one to get done quickly.
And so you see the applications come through.
Yep.
Some of them you might just look at the applications and go, that doesn't look good.
Exactly.
Because of whatever reason. And then you see one that goes, this looks potentially promising.
Yep.
The next step for that person is they're going to receive a quick phone call there as well. And you just call them out of the blue or reach out and arrange a phone call.
Yeah, that's always gets the best response, I think. If you can't get them, you try them again. But once again, the first step is to make sure that resume, that cover letter that they send through, they seem like they've got the sort of qualifications and runs on the board that we're looking for. Then a quick phone call. Then from there, I like to actually hand it over to our team. So I'll do and we'll get through to this. The third stage of our interviewing process is me, but the second stage is a practical interview. We get the candidates to come in and spend time with our senior team members, going through their programming philosophy, what they believe in as a coach. You've been into our gym. We're very much a functional fitness space with our background in strength and conditioning. So we don't lend ourselves to somebody who's, say, a Pilates instructor coming to work in that space, or a bodybuilding background. So our strength and conditioning or functional fitness space is going to lend itself to a certain type of coach. if they come in and run through their programming philosophy, we'll give them some scenarios. And the team members that are actually going to be working with them day in, day out on the floor will be the people conducting that interview. So we can see what they're like building rapport, see what they're like engaging with other team members, all of those sort of soft skills, and see if they can actually do the job. And then it's handed over to me for the third round interview.
And so before we go to the third round, so with the second round, what if their, let's say, philosophy of coaching doesn't, it's not that they're a bad coach, but it doesn't necessarily align with what the business currently does. Is that a problem, or are you just looking for competence in a certain area?
No, it's certainly, you could be the best Pilates instructor, for instance, in the world, but you're not going to be a great fit for our facility or our business model. You could be the best bodybuilding, say, coach. It's just there's going to be a disconnect in how we do things, what we believe in as a business, and what our members come to expect as well. So if you could be the most fantastic coach out there, but if your programming philosophy and ideals don't match up with what we believe in as a business, then unfortunately we're not going to be the right place for you.
So you're looking for the values to align kind of beforehand, essentially, because some people might look to nurture the person in there to match with them, but you want them to be kind of a good fit beforehand.
Just to have an understanding and a belief in our style of coaching.
Yeah.
And not to say that there's more than one way to skin a cat in the fitness industry, but we want to make sure that, your belief systems, your what you enjoy, and it comes back to a question you asked when you were in the studio last week of myself and Ettore, my head trainer, was what does our training look like? That's definitely a big question that I ask all of these candidates as well, because I want to know that they live and breathe what they're preaching to their clients and their customers and our members as well. So getting a good picture of, and they don't have to be a real cookie cutter of me or the rest of our team. We like people with different strengths and weaknesses, but they need to be aligned with what we believe in as a business.
And so step one is the phone call, and you just call them out the blue. I quite like that they're called out the blue. I actually do the same thing, in particular with if I'm looking for someone within the sales team, because you want them to be able to think on their feet very quickly and see how they react in that scenario unprepared. Whereas if they were to, hey, we're going to schedule a phone call for this time, they can, let's say, put a face on. Whereas if you can kind of catch them in a natural situation, and even sometimes the first couple of sentences that they say can give you a good idea of who you're dealing with, right? Or if they can't speak or they don't want to speak at that time or whatever it is, maybe you can, you're looking for someone that wants a job, and you can kind of tell straight away, right?
If they're at work as well and they don't want to take the call, it's sometimes a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So you have the phone call, and the objective there is just a culture fit. See if they're a nice person, and you can just generally get on with them and have a rapport. Number two is they come in and you're looking to see what their programming philosophy is like, and if that matches. And is also looking to see if they're a good culture fit with the current team in there as well.
Yeah, and that's why I have our team members run that. Run that second round interview so that they can pass a little bit of a judgment on how they think they're going to be getting along with that person, working day in, day out with them, because they're going to spend more time with that individual than I am as the business owner.
And has there been cases where their philosophy is in line, but actually they didn't pass the test that you actually run?
I really put a lot of weight on our coaches' opinions with that. There's no point in them doing it if if they don't get through that interview and my team doesn't recommend them as a fit. Well, I'm certainly not going to go against their better judgment, because, like I said, they're going to be the ones that are in the gym with them day in, day out, working with these coaches.
And if you were to, let's say, not involve the team, and then you hire them and then they're not a good fit, not only have you got someone that's potentially not right in the business, but it also makes the other team members unhappier as well, 100%. Right? So you can actually cause a huge amount of damage if you don't get this right.
Yeah, and them getting that little bit of an ownership on the direction of the business, I think, is important too. It gives them, they feel like they've got that sense of responsibility and leadership within our organisation as well.
Yeah, and so the third interview is back with you, and what does that look like?
So a sit-down interview, your typical run through a heap of cultural questions, questions around where they're wanting to head with their career, all of those sort of typical things that you'd expect from a job interview, I guess.
Yeah, and again, that's just kind of diving more into what they're looking to achieve and develop, and if they're going to be a good fit there.
Background, all of those sort of things.
Yeah. So they go through that process. You give them the job, and they kind of move into an onboarding process.
Yeah.
What does that process look like? So you sign someone up. What does that process look like to get them to the standard that you want?
Yep. Could definitely be done better. And that's, I guess, that's business in a nutshell. You know, you can always do things better.
For sure.
Spending time with our current team is a key thing. We've got a big online portal where a lot of resources on how we do things are kept as well, and guiding them through that process of where to find our information.
Documented online, essentially. There's some kind of onboard, like, hey, here's how we, run
a new member, all of those sort of things. How we run a class, how we run a personal training sessions, our philosophies on how all of those things are run. So they'll run through that process and be educated on that. And that's also done with their team members. So they'll be doing a lot of shadowing initially with their colleagues as well.
And I think that's a really valuable takeaway there. So for anyone listening, some people might, but I imagine a lot of people don't. Do you have resources that show every step of what happens when a customer comes on board, so they can see without having to be taught that through another team member, essentially? Because that's how you systematize the business, right? Where
Absolutely.
You can teach someone the systems through a system that's not a human. Because if the only thing you're doing to train up new team members is current team members, that's going to be problematic. If, let's say, you've got an old team member that's really experienced, they teach a new person, but then that old person were to leave. Yep. All of that knowledge then leaves the business, right? Yep. And all of that experience. And then the person that trains another new person is now less experienced, and through time, the onboarding process becomes eroded through lack of experience, essentially. Yep. Whereas if it's all locked and loaded somewhere online, there's videos, there's documentation, that's just there for life. And you might need to refresh it as the business evolves, but it's already there. And, you know, at FMA, and obviously this isn't directly a gym, but if someone signs up, again, let's just say the sales team, there's clear video instructions of, hey, this is how a lead is generated, and this is what happens with the lead, and this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to say, and then this is what happens if someone, like, we place it all out there so you can clearly see every single step. And that's exactly the same thing that you've done with the gym, right? For sure.
And it's a never-ending journey. You know, we want to constantly update that, constantly evolve that, constantly make it better. And that's the way that the business continues to grow. And that is where the majority of my energy should be spent. You know, we talked about sales before. I'm certainly still doing a lot of that hands-on, but that real, I guess, that playbook type ecosystem where things are consistently being documented and getting better and improved is where, I guess, my most valuable time can be spent.
And so the systems that you have in place, obviously, you know, if you just made the systems 10 years ago and then left them as they are, those systems probably wouldn't be that effective today.
100%. Yeah. You need to constantly review and evolve these documents as you go.
Yeah. So it's something that is being consistently worked on, whether it is the onboarding process or any other system, is just consistently being refined throughout that process. And would you say that's kind of your main job role now, as in, like, you're just looking at all the systems and refining them?
For sure. I could definitely spend more time on it, 100%. And it should be more of my time, because as much as we talked about me stepping away from the day-to-day hands-on coaching role, I'm still doing more than I probably should of sales, marketing, management. I think it's very important when we talk about stepping away from the business to work on the business, not in the business. We don't get bogged down just working in the business with a different hat on. So I don't want to go from being a hands-on coach to just being a hands-on manager or a hands-on salesperson or a hands-on administration person. It's about making sure that as we continue to develop a business and grow, we actually move into a real strategic and leadership role, as opposed to working in the business just with a different hat on.
And is that where you are now, where you're not really even managing the team on a individual basis as much in terms of managing them?
I still am doing more of that than I probably should be. It's a constant journey. I would need to be able to pull myself. I'd like to get probably not a full-time. I've got a 2IC. I definitely have a really strong 2IC in place in the business, but I would like to have a studio manager to support him in his role as well, so that I'm doing less of that administration burden also.
I love what you said there, because many people just assume getting off the gym floor is stepping out of the business, but you're still in the business, just in another function, whereas you're looking to delegate even further to make it completely operational without you, essentially. But to circle back to the onboarding process with the new staff member, so there's online videos that they can watch to show them there. What else does the onboarding process look like for a new person that comes in? Like is there a probation period? Is there, like, the first 30 to 90 days? What does it look like?
Yeah. So there's certainly a probationary period. We want to make sure, as much as they've jumped through all of the hoops of the hiring process, we want to make sure that they're a good fit, and that, early mornings or late nights when things get hard, that they keep those standards high, communicating to them what those actual standards are, and then training them up so that they know what's expected of them, and consistently touching back base on that. Are you doing things well? Making them feel like they know where the goalposts are, so they know what we expect of them and they know how to deliver that. I guess that's really important.
And so obviously you've got 12 people, you're not in the gym every single day. How do you know if they're adhering? Let's say a new person was to come on board. How do you know if they're adhering to the standards that you want in the business? Like what, let's say, whether it's data or communication, are you getting for you to say they're doing a good job, they're doing a bad job?
Yep. So data is definitely one of them, looking at things like retention rates, customer satisfaction, actually asking their clients, their members, their customers that they're dealing with, and then relying heavily on their fellow team members as well. So the people that are working with them day in, day out, making sure that they're pulling their weight, because we are a team of 12 is a team that does require some leadership and some management of. So you don't want people pushing in the wrong direction and then there becomes friction within the team. We want to make sure that everyone's getting along, number one, and that they're happy to pull their weight and happy to help out their fellow team members as we go as well. So making sure that that's a symbiotic relationship. There's not one person pulling in the wrong direction or not pulling their weight is really important.
So you're checking with clients that they've been training just to see how they're finding the new person, essentially, just for any sort of feedback, and then speaking to the team there as well. Yep. And then obviously let's say you had a number of cancellation notices and you can see who's been trained. You're like, what's going on here?
Absolutely.
So that's a key piece of it.
And providing that feedback too, making sure that's an open channel with that new team member so that they know what we expect of them. They know any of that feedback, good or bad, it's constructive, making sure I pass that along. Hey, Sally, who was training with you, mentioned XYZ, or one of our newest team members, I got a lot of really positive feedback from them recently and unprompted. So really making sure I share that praise there with him. So Finn's his name. I'm sure he's happy to get a little pump up. Got some amazing feedback from him, from some members, making sure I pass that on, because no one dislikes hearing positive feedback, but making sure if there is anything negative, and there hasn't in this case, but if there's anything constructive that we can pass on, making sure you're not afraid of that as well, because that's the way that we all improve, making sure we pass on that positive and negative or constructive feedback.
And have you ever had a situation, and this might kind of go back to the earlier days, where some gyms, when they're either getting their first staff members or some staff members leave, there's a problem where maybe older clients have favorites in terms of when you were on the gym floor, maybe you had a big personal connection with a lot of people, or there was a staff member that was there for a while and then left. Like, how do you make it so that the customer base isn't, let's say, relying on an individual, but the overall service, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's really hard. It's really hard. And it's certainly happened within our business. There's been certain periods of time where people have left, and I guess not taking it personally, number one, is a key thing. As I said, we've been in business for 21 years, or I've been in business for 21 years. It's a long time. You're never going to keep someone with you forever. We should really be happy when people leave and want to continue working within the industry, or if they leave to change careers altogether. Try and make sure that if people move on, that they're doing things with no bad blood, and that we're giving them our blessing as they go, number one. Number two, if they weren't doing a good job, then no one's going to be upset when they leave. I want customers to have a feeling of loss when we lose a great team member, because that means that team member's been doing a really good job. So it's just really important that we show that the business as a whole, number one, supports that person on the way in and on the way out. Number two, that the business is bigger than one individual. So one thing that we try and do as a business, if somebody has to go on holiday, all of us need to take a holiday. I need to be here, like right now. That when one staff member is not available, that we as a business can cover that person straight away. We communicate really well. We make sure that all of those specifics for those individual members are passed on. So there's a lot of really two-way communication between our coaches, so that if someone's filling in for somebody else, the customer experience doesn't diminish. So that if somebody does move on, not just for a holiday because they're not there anymore, they've changed careers or changed businesses or whatever, that the customer feels well supported enough that things won't change too much. The face might change, but the quality of service will remain just as high.
I love what you said, where if the customers are sad that a team member has left, it's because they've done a really good job.
Absolutely.
That's a really good way to look at it.
The only way.
Yeah. Rather than maybe be resentful for that person's listening, it's like, actually, that this person is leaving the team in a better position than when they first came there as well. And also, you mentioned to support them on the way out as well.
100%.
So in kind of is that managing them out of the business, or whether they've decided to go, or maybe you think they need to move on potentially?
Yeah, there's certainly been 21 years. There's been some times where I've had to make that call. Unfortunately, it's been few and far between. Like there's less than a handful of people that I've had to move on over that journey, but that's definitely happened. And making sure that you do that in the most gracious way possible. But when it's been our team members moving on for whatever reason, making sure that, we celebrate them on the way out, just like we did on the way in, because like I say, if they're not doing a good job, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
But we want our members to really care and feel that loss when somebody leaves, and make sure that it's a smooth transition on the way out.
And going back to the team member that's been interviewed, that's kind of been onboarded in the process there, what does the development look like for that coach? Is there a particular pathway that everyone goes on? Is it a little bit individual around the desires of the individual? What does that look like? It's
certainly individual, and I think people are going to have certain skill set strengths as well. And then people are going to have different long-term goals as well. So a bunch of our team members work in the strength and conditioning in professional sport. So me having a pathway for them to become a gym manager or a part owner or something like that isn't probably going to really cut it for people like that, because they want to use their time and training within the industry to work in professional sport. So understanding each individual is important, and understanding what makes them tick and where they want to get to over the long term is important as well, so that you know what success looks like for them. It's difficult in our business and in our industry because we're not Google. We don't have infinite career pathways or abilities to spin off new projects and things like that. So making sure you get to know what each individual really wants, and hoping that you can provide a pathway that's going to give them some job satisfaction over the long term, and giving them ownership. I think that comes back to me not being a micromanager, making sure that I hire people who have got a competent skill set, that you give them the initiative to do what you agree is going to be part of their role, give them the tools and the support to do it, but then stepping out of their way. So making sure that they've got enough to feel like they're being challenged and that they can continue to develop, I think is key for anyone.
And with the 12 team members, how are you keeping on top of all of them and making sure that each one of them are happy where they're at, they're performing to a good level? Is it something that you're doing individually to speak with them, or is there someone that's looking after that? What's the process of making sure all the staff are continuously adhering to the standards that you have?
I certainly wouldn't say I'll do that well enough. So I'm not going to sit here and profess that I'm the perfect manager, owner, or strategic business operator, that's for sure. I think we can always do that better. But yeah, and that's why I think that the next step for us is to have a studio manager, so that they can have more of those individual relationships with team members. But that's me at the moment. So juggling that amongst everything else as a business owner. So trying to make sure, and there's times that definitely team members slip through the cracks and don't get enough of my attention that they should. And there's always priorities as well when we're growing a particular area of the business, spending more time with that individual team member, or if there's someone new or if there's someone underperforming, they get more of your attention. And unfortunately, that means that others probably get neglected. And there's also, with me only being in the gym twice a week, there's team members that I see a lot more of and team members that I don't see as much of. So working on strategies and systems to try and, even though I'm not maybe with them face to face as much as I not should be, otherwise would be, that they still feel like they're having that solid relationship with me, so that they're getting challenged, they're getting developed, they're getting trained is a challenge, but I feel like we're constantly improving with it.
And you may have already answered this in what you said, but in terms of, you mentioned there's room to improve that area, which I always think is great, because as you mentioned earlier, consistently looking to refine the systems. If you could kind of, let's say, click your fingers and it was the ideal situation, what do you think that would look like to improve that process? I
think having a manager in place who has an individual meeting with each individual team member at least fortnightly, and then me at least monthly, and then meeting with that studio manager and reviewing everyone's process and progress, and reviewing that studio manager's progress as well. And then also reflecting back on myself. And I don't feel like I'm untouchable in this ecosystem. I certainly am probably the one that needs to improve most for the business to continue to improve. So I think looking internally always as a business owner and thinking that, trying to make sure that front of mind always is the business is in the situation that it is because of me, not because of anyone else. It's about ultimate ownership. So if I want to make the business better, I have to get better. I have to improve my skill set. I have to improve my leadership. I have to improve my management so that I can train my team and support my team to do better as well.
And is that a mindset you've always had in terms of, because you could, some people could maybe have a bit more of an egotistical mindset in terms of like, I'm not in the business, I'm not operational, as you said, like I'm untouchable. But it sounds like even though you are in a really great spot in terms of lifestyle and the business, you're still consistently looking at yourself as a business owner, as a manager, leader, and going, where can I improve? And, showing some vulnerability there.
I think business is the perfect mirror. So I think every time we've grown, it's because I've challenged myself and developed myself. And certainly we've had times where I've maybe shied away from that responsibility or started to blame other things like the economy or otherwise. And I feel like when that happens and you are not, like, rewind 18 months to when 12 months ago, we started working with FMA, and I started 18 months, so 6 months prior to that, I started blaming the economy. There was a bit of a recession. Interest rates were really high. Cost of living was high. We were coming off the back of COVID and all of the challenges that had. I started to get in a really negative headspace. And it was about, I feel like our business has perfectly mirrored my acumen as a business person the whole way along. So what does that mean? If we've stopped growing, I've stopped developing. So there's times where I forget that, I guess. It's been a long journey, 21 years. But when I keep that front of mind and I'm continually developing and continually pushing myself and traveling across the other side of the world to get better at what I do as a business owner and a business person, I feel like that's when our business always has an accelerated growth trajectory.
And what do you think stunted the growth more? The economy not being great, a mild recession, cost of living being up, or the mindset that you had towards the situation? Like, what was stunting the growth? The reality of, there was a recession, right? So that was true. Or was it the story that you were telling yourself? Like, which had a more negative impact?
Definitely the story I was telling myself, because retrospectively looking back now, the one thing that changed was my approach to pushing and marketing and driving the business. Yes, gradually things have improved from an economic standpoint. I'm sure they continually will, and that'll only give us more of a downhill run, make things easier. But the change was my approach to it. That was the biggest change. So pushing things again, driving again. And I had probably lost a little bit of the fire in my belly. I think there were, for various different reasons, I'd probably lost my confidence and my ability to be a little bit fearless in business. I was becoming a little bit too conservative. So to be challenged a little bit more there again, I was at a point where probably 18 months ago where I was thinking of maybe going in a different direction with my career. But bringing that back to, I think when you running a business, you can build it the way you want it to be. So keeping that front of mind as well, and keeping, it's the ultimate test from a day-to-day basis of challenging yourself, trying to evolve where you're at within the business. To continually challenge yourself is something I really enjoy, but you can get a bit stale and a bit tired, and you want to make sure that you're continuously challenged, and it's the way that you attack it.
And you mentioned that there was a time where you felt a little bit, let's say, unmotivated by the business, obviously running it for 20 years, or at that point, maybe 19 or so. Was it just general fatigue of the business, or like what was it that happened that made you go, that let's say, kind of dampened the fire in your belly?
I think I was definitely burnt out. I'd probably been doing things the same way for too long. So it was about finding something that, finding a way to change what we were doing day to day, day in, day out, so that I felt more challenged. But also just thinking of how far we'd come, thinking that doesn't happen overnight. It takes 21 years to get 21 years into business. So thinking if I was going to change careers, if I was going to change pathways, if I was going to sell the business and start up something afresh, you're starting from scratch, So I started this business when I was at university. So it's a long journey. It's literally hard. I'm 42. I started when I was 21. It's 21 years, half of my life working 23 years working in the fitness industry. It's a long time to get to where I am now on this career pathway, doing something new. So realizing that, and then I guess having gratitude, all of these challenges along the journey and things that have made you a better business person, and all of the challenges throughout, I guess being thankful for that and acknowledging that that's what's put you in the position that you're in today, which gives you the ability to not be in the gym every day and spend more time with your kids and all of those sort of things. That's an earned right. It's not a gift.
I love what you said about the gratitude element there, and like a phrase that really sticks with me is to say to myself to zoom out. So when you're in the business and you're having a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, whatever it is, and you feel like, you might have those thoughts in your head, burnout or change your career, whatever it is. If you zoom out and look at what you've built over a long period of time, you can really appreciate what it is you've actually built and the life that you have because of it. And then you can see the bigger picture as well of what it is that you're looking to achieve. But going back to, you mentioned that you're kind of nearly going to go to a different direction, but you decided to continue. What was it that gave you that switch? Because there's many people that are listening to this that feel burnt out, feel unmotivated, feel stuck doing the same thing again and again and again. What was it for you that was able to get that switch?
I think it was probably actually practically looking at what that would look like. So as I've said, I've got 3 young kids. I've got a wife who works. She's got a really successful career of her own. Starting to think about, okay, if I was to sell the business and I was going to go down a different pathway or work within the industry still for somebody else or whatever that would mean, how my life would have practically changed. I wouldn't be doing school drop-offs. I wouldn't be working from home 3 days a week. I wouldn't be probably the assistant soccer coach in my son's soccer team. All of those things that working for myself and working for a long period of time to get into the position that I am now, that I'm starting to take for granted, all of those things would go away if I just went and got a job. So it's the gratitude. It's about really starting to, practically thinking as to what that would have looked like. And then realizing that, hey, the grass isn't always green on the other side. Yes, there's a lot of responsibility and stress that comes with being self-employed and owning a business, and the pressure that comes along with being an entrepreneur. But there's still a lot of pressure working for somebody else, and it's maybe pressure not of your own doing. You're not in charge of your own destiny.
Going back to what you said about that story that you tell yourself, it's the economy. It's kind of like someone that is interested in something that's the gym saying like, I won't start now, I'll start later, or I'll start then, and they keep telling themselves a story of why they won't be able to succeed. And it's the same with business owners, right? But there's always a reason why you can't be successful in business, whether it's the economy, whether it's a quiet month, whether it's this. But actually to be able to shift your focus is a real superpower of being an entrepreneur. And you mentioned that you consistently develop yourself, and the next question is how you do that. Obviously you're here in the UK right now, right, and that's one way, but on an ongoing basis, how do you develop yourself as a business owner and just make sure that you're in a good, let's say, mindset to grow the business?
So in probably next Friday when I'm back in Australia and I'm driving to work and I'm listening to a podcast, I'll probably hear myself back maybe at some point, hopefully. But there's that. So reading, podcasts, I spend a lot of time driving, as we've said, with my commute into the gym. So podcasts are one thing, audio books, speaking to other business owners. I've got a network of other studio owners in Melbourne, New Zealand, and around Australia. And we meet up once a month and talk about the industry and what's happening within our businesses and the challenges we're having. So I think that's a key thing too. And, celebrating each other's success, because it can be I was talking to Ben about this earlier today. It can be a lonely road being a business owner, not having those, as much as I've got 12 colleagues in my business, my role within the organization sits separate to their function. So it's not as, you don't always feel like that they're your colleague or your team member because you're responsible for their performance. So making sure that you have other people, that are celebrating your wins for you, I guess, like other business owners, spending the time to get outside of the business and doing things like this week, I guess, getting away. And then I've got some other, I guess I'd call them mentors, which are other business owners in different industries altogether that I always try and, I guess, speak to and seek counsel of when I'm finding things difficult as well. And I think that's really important, not to just live within the echo chamber of the fitness industry as well, because that can sometimes be dangerous, just doing things how everyone else does things or has done things, thinking of what success looks like outside of the industry as well.
There's so much that you've just listed out there. And I know that there's a lot of people that do, maybe they listen to some podcasts or whatever, but they're just in their four walls all the time. And even if you work really hard, but you're just in the business, that can be quite a bad place to be if you're looking to improve a certain element. But actually, by removing yourself from those four walls, by consistently listening to podcasts, audiobooks, speaking to other people outside of the business, speaking to other people outside of the industry, coming to events like the FMA Mastermind and so much more that you listed off, all of those activities aren't within the four walls of the gym. These are all things outside that will able to positively impact the business that you have. And you mentioned that when you're actually out of the business, the impact and growth is so much better. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think you can grow the business better not being in the gym rather than and being outside the gym?
Yeah, I think my key role is to grow the business. I think if you're working within the business, you're constantly feeling the day-to-day pressures of how busy the business is. And I know my team would a lot of the time feel this. Luke's running another marketing campaign, or Luke's driving new customers in, or Luke's been selling a different promotion or another strategy that we're working on. And they probably feel the busyness day to day of that. And a lot of the time in the past, when we've gotten really busy, that's when I've been sucked back into the day to day operations of the business, because I don't want to just hire people on a reflex action. We want to make sure that we are getting closer to capacity rather than just hiring willy-nilly. We want to make sure that we bring the right people on board. But making sure that, I guess, we have only ever really furthered as a business when I'm spending the time and energy. When I'm getting better, the business gets better. And when I'm getting better, whether or not it's as a leader, whether or not it's as speaking to other business owners or challenging myself or working on my sales skills and things like that, that's when the businesses continue to grow. So it's really important that I spend that time to step away from the business and look at how things are running for it to continually improve. And
I want to, before we, after this next couple of questions, I want to move on to, let's say, sales and the client experience. And we've kind of gone at it from a perspective of a team member and their journey. I want to do it through the perspective of a customer before they are and everything else. But before I do that, if someone's listening to this and they're just on the gym floor and they want to start becoming more of a business owner, delegating more roles, what would be the jobs that you look to delegate first and ones that you look to leave first? So go back to when you say you're doing mostly coaching. What are the things that you're looking to delegate? It could just be coaching or it could be something else. Like, what's your sort of list of priorities there?
We spoke about this before the podcast kicked off, but I still handle all of the sales within the business. And I think that's important because per minute of time invested in a task, you're going to get the biggest return. Bringing on a new member, seeing them through to being a long-term member with you, looking at the lifetime value of that member or that new customer that you can bring on, the leverage that you have there is really, really important. So I try and make sure that that's a key function that I'm still involved in. One thing I can do a lot better still is handling that rollover process from a front-end offer into a long-term member and looking at that lifetime journey of a member. But I think that sales process, that building rapport, I like to think that I still have somewhat of a relationship with all of our members as much as I don't do the hands-on coaching. I know most people that will walk through the door, and I think that's important, the size of business we are. And as we continue to grow, that won't be the case. I know that, there's going to be a limit to that, but making sure that that's still the philosophy of our business as well. But I feel like a lot of business owners want to offload sales as their first thing to offload off their plate. That's not me, because I feel how valuable it is, even after running a business for this long. And I feel like I can continually do it better. So that's one thing that I wouldn't look to offload first. That's not the answer to your question, but that's definitely one that I'd push down the priority list. Coaching, as much as we all get into this industry because we love coaching, we love people, that's why we're doing this. And this is why we're not sitting behind a keyboard or otherwise. Funnily enough, that's what you end up doing most of your day. But if you love coaching, your time is a finite resource. So you can only see so many one-on-one clients, so many small group training clients, so many classes that you can run a week. So making sure I guess the first thing to do would be document the process of why you do things your way and why it works well. and then hire and train someone to do it your way. I guess that's probably the answer to your question, because that will then free up your time to get more people into your facility to train people more your way, so that it gives you the time to then move on to the next task, next thing with most.
And that's a really interesting point. So before actually looking to hire, document before that process. So like everything you do currently right now, you should look to document that. So if you're obviously the coach, you're going to document the coaching process. If you are doing the onboarding process, whether that's getting people set up onto a membership site or into a booking system and getting their first session, you're going to document that process. So then by the time someone does come in, all of that is there ready to go, essentially.
And that's boring to do. I understand that. And that's been something that I should have been far better at for far longer. But I feel like that's a really key skill, because no matter how many, as much as you're going to continually evolve that document and those playbooks that you have, but once that's created, it's just then an evolution of that. You just need to continually polish it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel each time you bring on another team member.
So reducing your time on the gym floor, getting obviously the coach and document that process. Does someone help with admin, like general admin tasks?
Yeah. So, we have a bookkeeper. I think that's been a key thing. That's probably a key point within our business. So I've pretty much always had a bookkeeper, but the bookkeepers we currently use, I have financial meetings with them once a month. Like we have accountants and we see them when we need them once a year, or a couple of times a year. But my monthly meetings with my bookkeepers have been a real game changer for me. They really help to look at cash flow within the business, all the things around tax liability, annual leave, all of those sort of things. And we forecast out for a full 6 months ahead, 6 months behind. And I have a good idea of the trend of, obviously running it for so long, the trend of what months do what, when we're at our busiest, when we're at our quietest, how payroll looks. And my bookkeepers are invaluable with that, so that I'm not flying blind. It's not just what's happening next month or what's happening next week or next fortnight. We're really good at projecting out what we should expect coming in, knowing what we can afford to invest in our team, and redeveloping the gym and investing there and those sort of things. So cash management, I guess if you can get on top of that early, it's really going to hold you in good stead.
And did you have to learn about financial literacy? Like
learned the hard way.
What was your skill set like when you first started?
As I said, I started this business when I was at university. I was a second year uni student, so I didn't know any of this. And I did an exercise science degree. As much as it's relevant to the industry, they're not teaching you how to run cash flow projections and profit and loss statements and these sort of things. So it's definitely been something that I've learned along the journey. Am I an expert? No, and that's why I invest in people who are, to help me with this, I guess. Have I got a far better handle of it now? Absolutely. But making sure that, I guess, just like hiring coaches, you can hire people who are better than you to do certain tasks. And I'm sure I could learn how to be a great, an okay bookkeeper, but it's far better for me to, invest in the people that are experts at that and free up your time, buy your time back.
And do you find that itself is a shortcut to, let's say, making gains in certain areas, as in like invest in the bookkeeper, invest into marketing?
Exactly.
Because otherwise, let's say you did that because it's not strength, right? But you would have maybe made mistakes. There's a cost to those mistakes. So you think you're saving because you're not spending money on the bookkeeper, but actually it could be costing you a huge amount.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have the experience.
And the marketing, go back to that, like we've been very successful previously with search engine optimization. I'm reasonably handy with that. I've invested in it, and we had some great web developers and some great people to help us there. But for whatever reason, and about 18 months ago, it stopped working as well as it used to. So we've had different agencies we've worked with in the past to varying levels of success. And sometimes I would try and run it myself, and I'd be staring at Ads Manager. I'd create a campaign that I think is going to be a winner, and you turn it on and you'd get no response or no results out of it. And then you just start doubting yourself. Whereas if you've got somebody like FMA on your side, as much as you might doubt yourself, you can trust in the process. If something doesn't work, you've got the support there to tweak it, rehash, and go again. So, and that's the same as using the bookkeeper, the same as having a good accountant, the same as having a good team of trainers. You want to make sure that you don't try and do everything. Know what you do well and know what you don't do well, and get the support in those areas, because there's a far better spend of dollar in your time.
And what's also great is that you learn through the services that are done for you. So you've probably learned a huge amount from the bookkeeper. It's not just something that they do. From those monthly conversations, you're becoming more competent, understanding a cash flow forecast and being able to see all of those other elements there.
100%. It's not just hand it over to them and then you never hear about it again. That's why we have those constant meetings every month as well. So to just stay on top of it, making sure that, if you've had some overspends or your sales haven't gone as strong as they should have, or your operating expenses are too high, and you can adjust from there, as opposed to, just sticking your head in the sand and not knowing what the numbers look like.
And you mentioned marketing-wise beforehand, the business was built a lot through kind of organic SEO, but that stopped working as effectively. Yeah. I wonder why that was. I think search is becoming less relevant as time goes on, especially as most people will use ChatGPT or some other type of AI to search a question. So less people are searching via the other channels in terms of looking at websites there as well. So very interested to see how that develops over time. But you found just less lead flow coming through from ways that
I'm sure we could our website, we spoke about my website or our website the other day. There's some certain things we can do there to make sure that it's continuing to perform well. And you don't want to forget about those other channels. Organic's not going to go away. You want to make sure you still do that well. There's ways that you can make sure that your website's more visible to AI search as well. That's definitely some stuff that we need to do. So it doesn't mean that you're just worrying about meta advertising. That's not why I'm working with FMA. It's to make sure that everything else you do can complement your paid marketing spend as well. It's not just do one and forget about the other.
Yeah, 100%. You've kind of got to do a little bit of everything essentially. So it's not just about just going on organic or just going on ads. You want all kind of cylinders firing, helping each other there essentially. So let's say I am a customer, I see marketing and I opt in, whether it's an ad, whether it's organic. What are the kind of steps let's kind of run through that customer journey. So you're the person that is calling the leads, and are you sign them up over the phone, consultation? What's your process?
Yeah, we definitely try and sign them up over the phone.
And is that, I imagine, that's always been your process? Because you've been quite, it wasn't. So were you driving in to do consultations? Or?
No, we'll say our other staff members might have done them. It might have happened on the days that I was there. Or otherwise, we're done. I used to do a lot of stuff by email, which it's totally ludicrous to think about it now. But yeah, we definitely try and do a one-call close now through doing a lot of that sales training with FMA. It's been super, super valuable. I used to think I was a shit-hot salesman on the phone, but I'm not, evidently. I think I'm definitely improving, and it's about doing the reps, spending the time. I definitely try and absorb as much as I can from a sales training perspective and try and improve that, just those 1% all the time, because it makes if you're selling well, your marketing expenses spent in the right way, I guess. So making sure you're continuously doing that better. So we'll sell over the phone. That'll then book them into, and sometimes people are reluctant to buy things over the phone. I definitely understand that. We try not to be too pushy. But there's ways we can follow that up. Then we get people booked into an initial one-on-one consultation, practical personal training session. So we want to try and get them sweating in that first session.
And what's the kind of varying prices of the initial sign up? Do you sell a front end offer or straight into membership? What is it that looks like?
Yeah, front end offer. We have experimented with straight into a membership. We've experimented in various different lengths of that front end offer as well, whether it's 21 days, 28 days, 6 weeks, different price points. Generally, we're landing on around a 28-day introductory, which is priced at $347.
Nice. Which
includes a one-on-one, and these are Australian dollars once again, a one-on-one consultation, one semi-private, so 1 to 4 coaching session a week, and then unlimited access to our group training sessions.
Nice.
So they have that support in that initial one-on-one. They've got those semi-private sessions each week where they're having that individualized approach and that contact with our staff, and then they have unlimited access to our group training sessions out from there as well.
Did you ever have any, when you kind of first learned how we sold, that's not going to work for me, or
100%
hard?
Yeah. And then just watching and not really understanding that you all think that your business is unique, and you are. Everyone's business is slightly different and they do things in a slightly different way. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, we're providing a service and we need to portray confidence to that customer over the phone that we have the skill set to help them get to where they want to be. So that's what we're all doing. How we do it practically will differ from business to business. But if we can portray our message that we have the customer's best interests at heart and we can help them get the results that they're after. How we do it, how we skin the cat isn't really the issue. It's about just getting someone on the phone, building that rapport and getting them to believe in your solution and then delivering on that. I guess that's the most important part.
And I think what you said as well is like, it's not everyone gets sold over the phone because some people might have hesitations. Sure. It's not about having a strict buy or die process on the phone because understandably there might be some people that go, I don't want to give my information over the phone or however. And if they want to come in, that's fine. So sell to the person that's in front 100%. Of you. But there's more people that will buy over the phone than people think. And something that I really like about your overall attitude is that your kind of growth mindset in terms of improving and becoming better. But you also said, I used to think I was good at sales until this. And so many people have said to me, oh yeah, I know how to sell. Like I've done sales training. And they think that because of that, they don't need to develop that skill set. And the way I look at it, it's a little bit like, imagine someone that used to go to the gym very often, let's say 5 times a week, and then they haven't been to the gym for a year. And then there's a competition coming up. It's a high rocks, CrossFit competition, whatever. And they go, oh yeah, I'll be fine because I've done the gym in the past. How are they going to perform versus the person that has still been going to the gym consistently every single week up into the competition? And the answer is the person that's been consistently putting the reps in is going to absolutely annihilate that person that hasn't done it. And to think that you know how to sell because you've done a training in the past is a mindset that will cost you. Because even the best salespeople in the world are consistently looking to train themselves and continue to keep the tool sharp. So I think having that attitude of I can be better is one that will make you more money rather than cost you for sure.
For sure. Absolutely.
And so you sign them up over the phone. How many, when a lead comes in also, how quickly do you try and get hold of them?
Firstly, the double dial works. I used to think that was being a bit of a pest, but double dials, initially people will think you're serious, I guess. So yeah, double dial, have that conversation with them and not rushing it. I guess in the past, and I still do this, the last sales call I made at the airport, that was a fail, doing it in the airport lounge before we left for this trip. But we get in the habit of trying to push to the close, I guess, but really letting an individual know that you care, that you build the rapport, and that you're interested in why they've entered their details into your website or your meta campaign or otherwise, really getting them to understand that you care and you've got a solution there for them. I guess getting to those pain points of what's prompted them to seek a change. So how many times, as many as it takes. I try not to push the envelope too much, and we do things like remarketing campaigns down the journey. So we'll have that. I'll give them 8 attempts to get in touch with them. If a phone call's not answered, I will leave a voicemail. I will leave a text message. I will send an email. Not all at once, obviously over the journey of those 8 calls. If we can't get in contact with someone, then we will remarket to them. We ran a remarketing campaign about 3 or 4 weeks ago, people that had been interested in signing up, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, then they got back in touch, they've signed up and are going to now become long-term members. So as much as you can sometimes get frustrated as a business owner or a salesperson that somebody's not answered, they've just entered their details, you've called them straight after, 1 minute later, they're screening your calls for whatever reason, they're not picking up, they're not answering a text, they're not answering an email, it might just not be the right time for them. So 3 months down the track, 6 months down the track, just continually look to re-engage those members. Then whether or not they're sold on the phone, whether or not they come into the gym, it's probably 80 to 90%. If they do join, they join on the phone. Some people will want to come and see that we're actually as much as we've been around for a long period of time, they want to, they might not have ever heard about us. They want to come and see if we're a friendly place, see if we're a non-intimidating place. They want to have a look around if it's the sort of gym that they're looking for. If the staff are friendly, all of that sort of stuff, we'll facilitate that. And then they'll be into an initial one-on-one personal training session or goals consultation from there. And
something you mentioned there, a few great things actually, is one that obviously you're calling the leads, at least 8 times and getting hold of them as quickly as possible, double dialing every lead that comes in. But I love the fact that you said I was at the airport lounge and I called a lead, because there's so many people that avoid doing sales and they might, block out a time and that's when they're doing it. But the best results is calling them, when you can. And as you said, it's a very high value task, because that conversation that you had at the airport could have resulted in multiple thousands of dollars or pounds being generated had that person signed up. So if you are consistent in, going, I'll call that lead now, whether you're not in the gym or you're not at home, and you just go, right, I'm going to give them a call. If you consistently have that behavior over time, you're going to make far more sales and signups than you would if you're just going to religiously call in that block of time that you've allocated in your calendar or whatever that may be. Something else you mentioned is that, there's leads that opt in 6 months ago and don't become customers. And I love that you mentioned this, because what most people will do is, if a customer opts in and doesn't become a customer, is nothing. And they look for the new lead to come in. Whereas there's a goldmine of inquiries that have opted in and indicated that they do want help, but it wasn't the right time. And I think recently you had quite a good amount of success with one of our lead reactivation campaigns. And just to give some insight, this is called the 72-hour promotion to conversion campaign. So this is an offer that is sent out exclusively to leads on your list. It's not going out to the wider market or like a colder audience, let's say. It's going out just to leads that haven't bought. And it gives an offer that has an urgency of just 3 days. And we do it in the UK at the end of the payday window of the month, but you guys get paid weekly, right?
I really tried to work out if we had a payday window, because we pay our staff fortnightly. My wife gets paid monthly. Some people get paid. It's very different, whereas it sounds like it's quite
generally speaking, it's like, at the end of the month, it could be the Friday of the month or the last day of the month, essentially. So everyone generally knows around that window in the UK, but it's different for Australia. But even so, it worked really well for you, right? So you put out this offer and it says, hey, come and train with us. And there's an offer for them to come in. And what did you do the offer that was in the training? Yeah. So essentially the offer is like, hey, come and train with us for 21 days on us. And you say, all you have to do is put down a deposit. And if you're happy, you can put that deposit towards your membership, or you can get it back if you're really unhappy. So you're very clear with what the offer is. There's no bait and switch there. You lay it all out. And how many replies and signups did you get just from those few emails?
So we had 21 replies and I sold 11 of them.
Wow.
So, and they're still coming in. They are getting towards the end of their 21 days. Will be just when I'm back from the UK. So I'm nurturing them. I'm sending a lot of emails from the cafe just this morning to all those people, checking in, seeing how it's going. And I am assuming of those 11, the bulk of them will continue on. So they'll use that deposit into a discount off an ongoing membership. So that's for leads that we paid for via marketing 6 months, 12 months ago. So
it's you haven't paid anything for those new signups, and you've been able to utilize the list. And it's so important that people are marketing to different audiences. You've got your cold audience where people are going to come through your paid or to come to your website, and then you've got people that are following you, but also your email list, and you should be utilizing that. And what you've just stated there is a huge testament to that, which is awesome. So client signs up, whether it's over the phone, whether it's whatever it is, and they sign. You say it's 28 days working well for you?
That's where we're landing. I will still, once again, the advice from Ben and yourself in a lot of these trainings is to mix this up. If you're running the same duration, the same offer, the same campaign consistently, sometimes the market can get a bit deaf to it. So we will continually tweak it over the journey, but predominantly it'll be a 28-day foundation membership. So an initial one-on-one PT session to get them set up, a semi-private session each week for that 28 days, and then unlimited group training access.
And so everyone that comes in has basically an initial one-to-one.
Yep.
And so, and they have to be private, and then they've also got access to class. They basically get access to all the services within that period of time. And what does that process look like in that first block of time, whether it's 28 days or whatever? Just to do you kind of hold their hand a little bit more in that period than you would if they're kind of more settled in?
Yep. A lot of hand holding. Depending on the demographic that we're marketing to as well, there might be a little bit more of that semi-private training access, a little bit less of the group training access. Like if it's a Live Well campaign, an over 50s campaign, there'll be more of the semi-private access, less of the group training access. So we do customize it depending on the demographic. A little bit more hand holding if it's somebody who's, a beginner's campaign, a little bit more hand holding through that process. So we do customize it to the audience. And then I try and be in touch with them every week throughout that, seeing how things are going, seeing if there's anything they're finding difficult, if there's any practical things like how they book in for their classes or how they find their favorite coach on the app and those sort of things, trying to troubleshoot all of those things so it's an easy, smooth sailing process throughout.
Nice. And then when they come to the end, how do they kind of pick the program for them, because there's a few different services there?
Yeah, so reviewing that, and that's another reason why I try and stay in touch with them each week throughout the journey. If they're really enjoying more of that semi-private training solution on the way through, that'll be how I gear that rollover conversation when we get closer to the end of the 28 days. Or if they're just attending the group training, they're getting a lot out of that, they're training 4 to 5 times a week, it's going to be their best value option. We try and prescriptively sell from there, recommend the best value membership for them. A lot of our memberships are combinations of different levels of access. So we try and make sure they feel like they've got that real customized solution coming towards the end of that 28-day period.
And what's your kind of retention rates of the clients that you've got that are ongoing? Like, do you know what your attrition rates are on a monthly basis?
Yeah, so overall in the business as a whole, it will be about a 3% churn month on month. For our front-end sales, we sit around about 25 to 30% on inquiry to sale, and then rollovers from those foundation memberships that we sell into long-term members would be around 50%. So certainly could be better across all of those metrics. That's why I'm continuing to work on myself in the business, because I think there's room to grow.
Well, I think 25 to 30% of lead to sale is pretty decent, to be fair. And front end offer, and again, like I think you've got a great mindset towards the business, because every like element you look at it how it could be better. So it's like, can I improve the front end conversion, which will just make life easier on the back end? And you're like, I can. So that's a really great attitude to have there as well. But 3% is impressive. What do you do to kind of keep the attrition in a good spot there, kind of ongoing? Like what would you attribute to that? Obviously you've got the team in place, which we've spoken about, but is there anything else that we maybe haven't covered that attributes to that great metric?
I think the community focus. I think so. Once every 12 weeks, we have what we call our game day. Our programming is all geared around this. So we have like a testing day. We do body comp analysis. People don't pay for this. It's just part of the membership. We run a couple of different sessions throughout the day. People come in, they test their strength metrics, they test their body composition. I get in there on the barbecue and all of that sort of stuff. So we make it a big community focus so that people feel like they've got something that they're training towards. They're not just training to be good at the gym. Like it's not, no one really cares in day-to-day life how big your back squat is or something like that. So we give them something to train towards so that their training has a purpose, so that they feel like they're working towards a goal. And that can be individualized. We do obviously have our structure of what we test every training block, but it also is a big part about them getting in and just enjoying the community that they're part of, forming those friendships. They might be someone who only ever trains at 5:30 in the morning, so they haven't met the people who train in the evenings, those sort of things. And just trying to make it a celebration of what they've been training towards. Not everyone likes that. So making sure that even then for those training blocks are all done at set intervals throughout the year, so that their personal trainers are still celebrating those successes and that we're measuring that success throughout those 12-week blocks as well.
And you've got a lot of competition in your area. Round the corner, I think about a 5-minute walk or so, there's kind of a High Rocks type gym. And I think there's a little bit more competition as well. Like I think South Melbourne is Melbourne in general, the fitness space there's a lot going on basically. There's a lot of options in terms of classes and also Pilates, and there's so much going on there. How do you deal with a high amount of because you're in a competitive area essentially? How do you deal with that? I think it only makes you better. So as I said, we've been around for a long period of time. There's been a lot of different businesses come and go. If it was just us and we were just dominating the marketplace, I don't think we would be anywhere near as good as we are, because I feel like you need to stay at the top of your game. If someone else is going to come and try and, they've got overheads, they've got staff, they might have a mortgage and a family to feed as well. So they're going to try and steal your market share. It's business at the end of the day. So we've got to make sure that we continually keep improving and doing what we do well, unlocking different markets that we can market to, like the over 50s market that we've spoken about, the beginners market, making sure that it's a very highly densely populated area of the city as well, as you know. A lot of people live in the area, a lot of people work in the area. So, there might be 100, 150,000 people in the area, in the suburb every day.
if we're only looking for a small fraction of that, we're going to be well serviced to fill the gym until it's at bursting capacity if we can really market and do what we do well.
And you've been very kind of open in this about kind of where you're doing good and where improvements need to be made. What would you say is kind of next on your, let's say, horizon of the business? What areas do you think you need to, like systems that you are focusing on improving at the moment and into the, let's say, near future?
I think the biggest area that we can have the biggest impact is nudging that foundation or front end offer to ongoing member. So we certainly don't want to forget about front-end sales and marketing well. We certainly don't want to forget about doing a great job day in, day out with our current members. But I think providing a little bit more support, a few more touch points and some more automation on that journey through so that first 60, 90 days of a customer's journey, putting those benchmarks in, those touch points, some handwritten cards and all of these sort of things to really ingrain these people in what is our way of doing things so that they feel really well supported. I think if we can nudge that up by 5-10%, we're sitting having this conversation in 6 months' time, it's going to be another level of success.
Amazing. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up everything from there. But thank you so much for being on the podcast. Look forward to seeing you in the next couple of days at FMA Mastermind as well. And hopefully you can get some sleep and beat the jet lag as well. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.